Welcome to the Understanding Tiered Rent video. This is Sally. She just learned that her portion of the rent is going to be calculated based on something called a tiered rent. The Housing Authority hopes the tiered rent will be simpler and help her keep more of her money. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, will be studying this program to see how well it works. Let's talk about what this means for Sally. To start, Housing Authority staff will review Sally's documentation and figure out her income. Housing Authority staff will let her know what documentation they need and explain how they will be calculating her income. Based on her income, the Housing Authority will place Sally in a tier. Each household whose income is in that tier will pay the same amount for their portion of the rent. Those in higher tiers pay more, those in lower tiers pay less. After she is placed in a tier, her portion of the rent is set for the next 3 years. If Sally's income goes up during those 3 years, she does not need to report it to the Housing Authority, and it does not change her portion of the rent until her next re-examination. But wait a minute. What if Sally loses her job or faces a health crisis that makes it hard for her to pay her portion of the rent? Anytime Sally believes that she is experiencing a financial hardship, she can contact the Housing Authority and request a hardship exemption. If her situation meets the criteria for a hardship exemption, the Housing Authority will temporarily reduce her portion of the rent. Housing Authority staff will work with her to determine how long that rent reduction will last. 3 years after the Housing Authority sets her tiered rent amount, Sally will have a re-examination. At that time, the Housing Authority will need to review her income again and see which tier her income falls into. This will determine her portion of the rent for the next 3 years unless she experiences a hardship. This means that if Sally's income goes up during the 3 years before her next re-examination, her income won't affect her portion of the rent and she will get to keep all the additional income. Her portion of the rent won't change because of her income until her next re-examination. If anyone is added to or removed from the household, Sally will need to notify the Housing Authority, but the change will not increase her portion of the rent until her next re-examination. Now Sally knows the key things about how tiered rent works. 1. Her portion of the rent will be set based on her income tier. If her income goes up during the next 3 years, it will not make her portion of the rent go up. 2. If she faces a financial hardship, she can apply for a temporary reduction in her portion of the rent. 3. The Housing Authority will review her income again after 3 years to determine whether her new income puts her into a different tier, which would change her portion of the rent. And of course, whenever she has questions along the way, Housing Authority staff will be there to help guide her.